So, the Six Thatchers. That aired today. Let's talk about it. Spoilers, obviously. I'm gonna start at the end with Mary. It didn't surprise me at all that she got killed off, and yes, I think she's actually dead. We knew that it was going to happen eventually, and I think it was the smartest move for them to get it done in this episode. If they hadn't have done that, the show would have been stuck in this limbo of, do we go on the case or do we take the baby? Wow, what do we do? Which would have gotten very old very quickly. I also thought that they would probably get the baby stuff out of the way early on, and they have, which is good, but they've done it in a way that they can still incorporate Rosie into the plot without bogging it down too much. I was afraid coming into this season that there would be too much focus put on the baby, and then a lot of it would be taken away from John and Sherlock and the cases. That focus was still sort of taken away today, but not by Rosie, which was good. So back to Mary's death. I saw someone say that we didn't see a gravestone at the end, so whoa, she's gonna come back and be alive. But we saw a shot of a cremation and then John walking out of the cemetery. So it's not too hard to piece together that she was just cremated and then that's it. She's dead. Okay, so the manner of Mary's death would first make us believe that she's following some sort of redemption arc, saying we're even now. That seems plausible and fair in the moment, especially after the lead up that we've gotten during the episode, of her past finally being properly revealed rather than just being partially discussed and shrouded in lies and ambiguities. The last few minutes shows us that this is all a ploy. Mary's main relationships, those being between Mary and John, and Mary and Sherlock, can't really be viewed the same way because she has different relationships to those people. I do believe that Mary loved John and that's why she lied. She was being truthful when she went in pursuit of safety for John and Rosie. I don't doubt that. What I do doubt is the nature of Sherlock and Mary's relationship. Mary has constantly been shown to outsmart Sherlock, and I do believe that she was acting around him. We saw how easily and convincingly she slipped into different personas, so it's not a stretch to think that she would do this around Sherlock too. She made Sherlock care about her. Initially, Sherlock wanted to protect Mary because he wanted to protect John, and even by the end it's still about that. It's always about John. Although I do think that over time Sherlock did grow to care about Mary, like you said. Season 3 affected Sherlock as he now feels more genuine human connection. From season 1 to now we've seen him grow from a high-functioning sociopath to someone that, whilst not completely socially apt, has formed meaningful relationships with people. Sherlock made a vow to protect her, John and the baby for the sake of John. When he fails to do this, John starts to resent him, although it isn't actually Sherlock's fault at all. Sure, you could justify John's resentment by saying that Sherlock was the one that convened them to the aquarium, but the reason for their meeting was Mary's past, Mary's problems, and ultimately Mary's fate. Sherlock was simply the investigator. Also, Mary jumped in front of the bullet. There is no way that Sherlock could have prevented that because she did it of her own accord. So Sherlock isn't the person to blame. But of course John's grieving mind can rationalise the situation to make it seem like Sherlock is the one to blame. And Mary banked on that. Mary knew that John would react in the way that he did, put Sherlock to blame and cut him out. I talked earlier about Mary's false betrayal of herself to Sherlock. This episode mentioned Moriarty multiple times, but that was mostly a result of Sherlock's paranoia rather than actually being involved in the plot. But that's where Mary comes back in, because she was possibly a part of Moriarty's posthumous revenge. By taking the bullet for Sherlock, she's ensured that John will resent him, cut him out, and destroy him. John is the driving force that keeps Sherlock alive. Just look at Reichenbach, his last vow, the abominable bride. Sherlock is always kept alive by John. He falls off a building to save John Watson. John Watson is definitely in danger. He restarts his heart, claws his way out of the mind palace, and regains consciousness. In a drug-induced haze, John Watson pulls him out. He reads John's blog to get him out of depressive slumps, for God's sake. By cutting out John, Mary is fulfilling Moriarty's last wish, to burn the heart out of Sherlock. And John Watson is definitely his heart. Whether you take that in a Johnlock way or just as their loving friendship is up to you. But either way, it's undeniable that John is the heart of Sherlock. All of this seems a little bit unbelievable, that Mary, who seems so genuine in her liking of Sherlock, would want his demise. Unless you saw the credits bit. Go to hell, Sherlock? In the same vein as Moriarty after season 3? I think it's a pretty clear link between the two that'll be explored more in the coming episodes. A lot of the complaints toward this episode are that it's a bit muddled, and that it doesn't follow the same conventions that a lot of the other Sherlock episodes do. I agree. I wasn't blown away. I still enjoyed it, and I'm still excited for the remaining 2 episodes of the season, as I'm sure that they'll explore some of the major themes, namely the theme of love. People have been saying for years that BBC Sherlock is not just a crime show, it's a love story. And this episode screamed at us. But subtly, like a scream underwater. The code amo, meaning I love, was an interesting take, And I'm excited to see where they take this, although it was mostly used in relation to Mary, and I doubt that we'll be hearing too much about her, aside from the grieving, obviously, because they're going to grieve about her. Ammo, as in ammunition, is destroying, and so by paralleling this with ammo as love, it's insinuating that love is also destroying. This is a nice throwback to the beginning of the show when Sherlock was very adamant that sentiment was just a defect found on the losing side, but I don't think he connects as much with that statement anymore. This was again referenced in the Six Thatchers with the, "Is that sentiment talking? No, that's me. It's difficult to tell the difference these days," showing that Sherlock has definitely progressed emotionally. In terms of what I think will happen with John Locke, I'm pretty convinced that it's going to be explored in some way. But I don't think he was in that episode, despite some people thinking that Mary's death is now an open gate for John Locke to happen. I don't think that would be the most plausible course of action, nor would it make for a very good episode. It has been floating around that Sherlock may have been texting John instead of the bus stop girl, but I find that just as unlikely. There is a good chance that John wasn't texting the bus stop girl though. And speaking of her, foreshadowing! I'm sure she'll play a fairly large role in the next episode as some sort of villain or at least an aide in that regard, although I don't think it will be in association with John. The other motifs, such as the constant references to water and also the use of mirrors in the cinematography, were interesting to look at visually, but I don't think that they had much of a role in the episode. The water seemed to give a dreamlike effect to the episode, which kind of makes that Sherlock to be an unreliable narrator, but I don't think that that's a path that they were trying to take. I don't really think that it was a Mind Palace dream like the Abominable Bride, but it's a possibility. It was an odd decision to overlay the water though, and I don't really know what they were trying to achieve with that. Whereas Sherlock is ordinarily about John and Sherlock, the Six Thatchers was about Mary. I'm not hopeful that John Locke will become canon, but I am hopeful that they will acknowledge the continual subtext and coding that they've been putting in across the course of the show, and I think they'll acknowledge it sometime this season. Sherlock is becoming continually more emotionally vulnerable and John is always at the crux. So, what's to come? I'm unsure. I think we'll see more of emotionally vulnerable Sherlock as he can't function without his heart, John Watson. John will come around, but he won't be happy about it. And it seems we'll have another Magnuson type character, which should be interesting. Whatever happens, I'm keen and waiting. Let me know what your thoughts on the episode were, and if any of my theories were a bit too far-fetched. I'll probably do another one of these episode debriefings next week, so if you want to tune in for that, you should, because it'll be probably just like this and just as convoluted and analytical. Alrighty, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye!